Welcome to the Dementia Hero Podcast, where we turn the chaos of caregiving into confidence, compassion, and joy. I'm your host, Amy Moorhead, a nurse practitioner, dementia educator, and former full-time caregiver. And I know firsthand how devastating this disease can be, how it can shake your world, steal your sense of self, and leave you wondering if life is ever going to feel normal again. But you know, I've also been on the other side. I've walked this road, and I now have a map to guide you through it. You don't have to lose yourself in this journey. So take a deep breath, grab a cup of coffee, and let's walk this journey together. Because you, my friend, are a dementia hero. Let's get started. You walk into a room, and your loved one says to you, looks straight at you and says, "What's he doing over there? He's just standing staring at me." But there's no one there. Or they're absolutely certain that they're ready for school and their daddy's going to come pick them up, even though they're 75 years old, and they're looking for their pencils and papers to take to school. And you're standing there thinking, wait, what? Dementia has a way of creating an entirely new reality. One where time, place, and even people don't even make sense. And as caregivers, we're left trying to navigate the world that plays by completely different rules. You know, the man standing in the room was an actual experience I had late at night. Where Mom was living is she took our first floor master bedroom. And my husband and I moved into the basement when she moved in. And I could hear what was upstairs. So if she was pacing the floors, I could hear. Or I would try to keep an earshot out if she would fall, or whatever sound was coming from the ceiling of where we were sleeping. So I heard her pacing back and forth and woke me up. I'm a very light sleeper. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I went up to go check on her to see why she was pacing the floor. It usually meant she was nervous about something. What that something was, I would never know until I would go check on her. And she told me in the corner, she pointed, and she was pointing and whispering like girls in school kind of whispering in each other's ears with their hand cupped around their mouth, whispering to you that he's standing there and he won't leave. Why won't he leave? And there's no man there. It's just the corner of her room. There's a shadow in the corner of the room, but there was no man there. And a client's dad, he was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, putting on a suit and insisting that he was late for a meeting from 1982. You know, and picturing him rushing off to an office that hadn't existed in decades, kind of made her chuckle. And I'm glad she was lighthearted with it. But it's moments like this that open a door to something really fascinating and important about how the dementia brain experiences time. So let's talk about it. And while we're at it, we're going to dust off our Narnia glasses and we're going to look at things through a new lens. So a quick experiment. If you're not driving, you're not juggling coffee and things all over, in your hands, I want you to put your hands out in front of you, palms down. Now, I want you to stack one hand on top of the other, like the right over the left. It's stacked. It's a stack. Now the left over the right and the right over the left, and continue stacking that up like a stack of pancakes. That's how time works in a healthy brain. One event sits on top of the other, and yesterday stacks on last week, which stacks on last year. It's orderly, it's linear, like a perfectly stacked tower of pancakes. Now, change it up. Your hands are still stacked on top of each other, but now interlace your fingers. Kind of like, if your hands were facing each other and you interlaced your fingers, you could do that nursery rhyme of here's the church, here's the steeple, open the door, and here's all the people. But they're stacked on top of each other, and you interlace your fingers. That's how time works in a brain affected by dementia. It's twisted, it's tangled. It's like spaghetti instead of stacks of pancakes. So a spaghetti mess of memories. So Tuesday from 1982 might be woven right into this Tuesday. And the brain's timeline doesn't run straight anymore. It loops, it folds, and it ties itself into knots, really. And you can hear my dogs in the background. Sorry. And this is what we call time shifting. When a person with dementia slips into a different era of their life and it feels real experiences. My mother, another story, she was waiting for her daddy to come pick her up for school. She was looking out the window. She was pacing back and forth because he was late. She was looking out the window for him to come pick her up from school. Now, backstory, my mom grew up in the immediate post-World War II era. So she was born in 1944. And her mother had joined the workforce, and she was now working at a bottling company, like a bourbon bottling company. And which was strange because she was Baptist prior to marrying into a Catholic family, but she was Baptist, and type of Baptist that would only drink clear liquids, nothing that had color to it. You know, I don't know all the rules and regulations of her denomination, but anyhow. And so she worked at a bourbon, bottling company. And her dad stayed home with mom. He had lung cancer, he was sick, and he stayed home with her. This was a special time for mom when her dad was able to stay home with her because she was the only one in the family. She was the baby in the family, and she was the only one that got that much attention from their father. So I think her other siblings were kind of jealous of the attention that she got. And she grew in confidence during that time, and he instilled this self-worth in her. And that was so valuable to her, spending that time and building that confidence in herself just through his words and encouragement. And later, when her brain was affected by brain change and dementia, she would cry out for him because she was looking for stability. She was looking for a solid foundation to land on, and she would cry out for her daddy. I'm getting off track. Okay, I'm going to get back on track here. But anyhow, this one particular day, she was waiting for him to pull into the driveway to come pick her up for school. She's 77 years old, mind you. And those experiences you'll find yourself in. And they're not confused as much as they're reliving. It's not about forgetting, it's remembering, but from the wrong chapter. And their internal calendar has thrown away some page numbers. And let's say your grandmother asks you if you finished your homework. You're 50 years old, mind you, and you haven't touched a backpack in decades. But in her mind, the year is 1995, and you're still her little student. Or your dad calls you by his brother's name and wants to go feed the cows on the family farm that he left 60 years ago. It's not random. It's the scrapbook of their life shuffled like a deck of cards. What's more familiar, more emotionally secure, bubbles up what short-term memory fades. If you think about short-term memory as Swiss cheese, there's holes in short-term memory. They remember some things, not everything. And there are holes, those holes in the short-term memory, the brain fills with prior experiences, prior memories. But these memories could be from 40 years ago that they plug into short-term memory. So it's all intertwined together. So, what do we do with all this? What do you do when you're in this situation, you're in this scenario? So I want to, if you've seen the movie Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, or read the book by C.S. Lewis, you'll be familiar with Lucy. And Lucy stepped through an ordinary wardrobe into a snowy forest filled with fauns like Mr. Timnus, witches, and talking lions. And she came back, eyes wide, full of wonder, trying to tell her siblings. And they didn't believe her. They told her it wasn't real. They even, like Edmund, even made fun of her. He even made it a point to go to the back of the wardrobe and knock on the solid wooden back wall of that wardrobe. See, Lucy? See? Just to prove to her that she was wrong. Does any of this sound familiar? That's what it's like when we try to correct our loved ones. When we say, no, that's not real. Or, no, it is Tuesday in the year 2025. Or, no, you already ate, remember? Oh, your mom passed away years ago. You become the Edmund in her life. You deny Narnia. But what if we did the opposite? What if, like Lucy, we believed? What if we stepped through their wardrobe with them? This is where a little improv can go a long way. Caregiving is a lot like acting in a scene where you don't have a script and your co-star is making it up as they go along. You don't know what to expect next. But if you learn the one golden rule of improv, it is yes and. So let me give you an example of improv. So say we're in a room together, right? We're all in a circle. There's 4 of us, okay? And you're standing beside me and you just make up a story at the top of your head and you say, oh my, there's a gorilla climbing down from the ceiling. And then it's my line next. You look to me, and then I say, yes, and he's wearing a green scarf. I look to the partner next to me. It's their line now. And my partner says, yes, and they're coming over for tea. And looks to the next one, the 4th one in the circle, and the 4th one in the circle says, yes, and he brought some tamales. Whatever, you know, you get the point. So caregiving is a lot like that. Instead of saying, Dad, you're not going to work today. Instead, you say, yes, you know, and I saw your schedule. Your shift has already been covered today. So why don't we grab some coffee? Or, yes, I love that math teacher we had. Which class are you heading to next? Or, with my mom waiting for her daddy to come pick her up for school. Yes. And what was your favorite class in school? Remind me. And we would go off on a whole other tangent about her favorite class in school. And we could develop a whole conversation and distraction around this conversation. The man in the corner of the room, the shadowy corner where she thought a man was. I could have just easily said, oh my gosh, Mom, it's 2:00 in the morning. We're both exhausted. We're going to have horrible days tomorrow. We just both need to go to sleep. She would still be pacing the floors at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. Because if I can't see what she sees, I can't protect her from what she sees. I need to see that. I need to enter her reality. So instead of doing that, a much better option was walking to that corner, that shadowy corner of the room, approaching the man and say to my mom, yes, and it seems like he's lost. He needs to go back to his room. I tell you what, John, we're going to walk you back to your room. And I pretend to take him hand in hand and walk him to the front door. Say some pleasantries. Goodbye. Have a good night. We'll see you later. Lock the door and come back. And tell Mom that he made his way back to his own room and all is right in the world now. And she was able to calm down. She was able to relax and go to sleep. You're not lying. You're leaning in. You're stepping into their scene, into their emotional truth, because this is fully truth to them at this moment. And at that moment, that's love in action. Caregiving can seem like time traveling. But with your Narnia glasses on, where you can step through that wardrobe, you can see what Lucy sees, and you're not going to be the Edmund of their lives. You see what others miss. You have connections where others miss connections. You don't yank your loved one out of their world. You walk in hand, sit down beside them. And even though it can be awkward at first, getting used to the yes and terminology. Taking the reality given to you, their emotional truth is their reality, and it's now going to be your reality. Taking that reality and saying yes and you add to it. Don't subtract from it. It's a beautiful and sacred thing, to get to dance with the past while standing in the present, and to be someone's anchor and their fellow traveler at the same time. So the next time your daddy or grandpa is in their suit for a 1982 board meeting, smile. Step through that wardrobe. Say, "Yay, let me grab your briefcase. We're going to have a big day." And then you get busy with an activity. Because sometimes the most healing thing you can do is just say yes and follow them into Narnia. That's it for today, Dementia Heroes. I hope this episode gave you a new way to see this journey, because when we change the way we see dementia, we change the way we respond to it. If this episode helped you, share it with another caregiver who needs a little encouragement today. Remember, you are not alone. You are enough. And you, my friend, are a dementia hero. Until next time, take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and keep walking this journey one step at a time.